All right, good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see you back for lesson 2 of our START program. Remember, START, Substance, Tobacco, Alcohol Resistance Training, put on to you by the St. Charles County Police Department. Now, you'll notice that in our first lesson, it was Officer Thorpe who was teaching you that day. And today it'll be me, Officer Ron Newport. So we're going to switch back and forth. You'll see both of us plenty. Although we're assigned to different schools, we are both co-teaching this entire 9-week lesson course. So we're just excited to be here with you every day. So let's get started today. So today's lesson, lesson number 2, about tobacco. It's going to be very interesting with a lot of information that you'll receive today that you may not have known, something you already do know, but we will try and provide you with as much as we can today. Before we even start with our lesson though, what I want to do just for a little bit of fun is we're going to do a little bit of a bell ringer. So you'll notice that there are 9 words in your bell ringer. 4 of those words you're going to work on today as part of our vocabulary. But the other 5 words will be used as key words throughout all of our lessons. So at this point, what I'd like for you to do is take some time, look at your keywords over on the right of the page, and it's actually going to be in your workbook, so you know what I'm talking about here is the start of lesson 2. And it's up here all the way up on page 8 in your workbooks. So turn to page 8 at this time, go ahead and take a few moments, about 3 minutes, and go ahead and work on your word search. Also, at this time, go ahead and pause your computer, and we'll come back in just a moment, okay? Welcome back from your short pause there. Now, we're going to go ahead and display the next slide up here, which will actually have our answers. So how many did you get? Did you get all 9? I hope you did. You should have been able to get all 9 by now, but if you didn't, well, I do have the answers up here for you at this time, so you can go ahead and make sure and circle and see where you have missed one or two of the words. So the last class actually did 7 out of 9, so hopefully you guys got 9 out of 9. So you're going to see me referencing to the workbook at times because we're going to go back and forth in different pages. So hopefully everybody has their workbooks with them and we'll be able to utilize them on a daily basis while we're having class. So the next thing we're going to talk about right here is kind of a review of our first lesson. So if you notice up here, we want to review the class expectations. So real quick here, I'm going to flip back and I want you to flip back with me to page 7. Remember, this is something you kind of signed for us and agreed to go by during the time of our 9 weeks. So as a START student, I'm expected to remain drug-free and alcohol-free, follow class and school rules, and don't forget your mom and dad's and your parents' guardians' rules. Remain violence-free and bully-free. You participate in class or at your home class and complete all of your assignments. Be respectful to my START instructor, your teachers and your peers, and your guardians. Don't forget that as well. And this is something that you also signed and agreed to. And one thing we also did, back in the very, very beginning of the book, you have page 2. Back here it says, where am I going? And I like to talk about this a little bit, about myself as well. And when I was a young person, what I wanted to do as a real little guy, I thought it'd be cool to be a trash man or the ice cream man. It looked like a lot of fun. And those are very good jobs. But as I got a little bit older, I started to think more about what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to college. And I realized that things that could get in my way and keep me from my goals were very important for me to make the right choices. So what I wanted to do actually was be a law enforcement officer in the conservation department. But that didn't turn out, but I still became a law enforcement officer. And 36 years later, I'm right here with you talking to you about your START lessons. So who am I? Who are you? Where are you going? How will you get there? And importantly, that's not up there, what can stop you in your tracks? We're going to cover our objectives. Every lesson, before we begin, we cover key points of what we're going to be learning for the day. So today's objectives, you're going to learn about tobacco in its most common forms. We're going to learn about the health effects of tobacco. We're going to learn interesting facts and figures about tobacco use. And we're going to learn about the various parts of the body that tobacco negatively affects. I want you to think about tobacco for a minute. When I think about tobacco, I think about something like a cigarette. And you got the brown part of the cigarette in there, the little crumbly things that are all dried up. That's kind of generally what you think about. But in reality, when tobacco starts out, it looks just like this. It's a beautiful plant in a beautiful valley in a farmer's field. It's not what you would think, though. So the actual definition that we have up here is that tobacco is a plant with leaves that are harvested to make cigarettes, cigars, pipe tobacco, and smokeless tobacco. Now, what I want to do is I want to run a little bit of a video here, about 3.5 minutes long. And this is really an interesting video. It has a lot of really key points in it. And what I want you to take from it is that the name of the video, first of all, is From Plant to Product to Puff. And it really kind of walks through the different stages of where tobacco starts and where it finishes. So we're going to go ahead and run the video. You'll see me come back after the video and we'll refresh and rehash and review what we watched in the video. All right? So we're going to go ahead and hit play.
We've heard it before. Tobacco products are dangerous. They cause heart disease, lung cancer, and other cancers. But what makes tobacco products so dangerous? The truth is, it all comes down to chemicals found in every stage of development. From growing the plant, to manufacturing the product, to using it. This toxic mix of chemicals harms almost every organ in the human body. And it actually starts here, with the tobacco plant itself. Nicotine naturally exists in the tobacco plant, serving as its pesticide against insects and animals. Nicotine is the chemical that causes addiction, and it's the main reason it's so hard to quit smoking once you start. It can change the way your brain works, causing you to crave more nicotine. Where tobacco is grown can affect its chemical content. Heavy metals like cadmium and lead are often found in the soil, and fertilizers usually contain nitrates that build up in the plant as it grows and are released when the tobacco is burned. All cigarettes, even those advertised as natural, organic, or additive-free, have chemicals that could cause serious harm to your health. After a long hot summer, the tobacco plants are ready for harvest. During the curing process, chemicals called tobacco-specific nitrosamines, or TSNAs, form. These TSNAs can cause cancer of the lungs and esophagus. After curing, the leaves are shipped to the manufacturer. When making cigarettes, the manufacturer often adds chemicals to the tobacco to control moisture, enhance flavor, and mask harshness. But some of these added chemicals also cause harm. For example, manufacturers may add ammonia compounds, which change how easily nicotine can be absorbed into the body. Manufacturers also may add sugars to mask harshness. These natural and added sugars can lead to the formation of acetaldehyde, a cancer-causing chemical that can make nicotine even more addictive. When you smoke, you absorb these dangerous chemicals through your mouth and lungs. But there's one more way to add even more toxic chemicals to a cigarette. Light it. Burning the cigarette creates dangerous new chemicals that weren't present in the growing and manufacturing stages. If you smoke, or if you're exposed to secondhand smoke, you inhale carbon monoxide, which can lead to heart damage. 1,3-butadiene, which affects the reproductive system. Acrolein, which can cause irreversible lung damage. Benzene, which may decrease fertility. More than 70 cancer-causing chemicals, and many others. These chemicals are found in every puff of cigarette smoke, and they're known to cause disastrous health effects, such as lung disease, heart disease, and a laundry list of cancers. And to think, it all started here.
All right, everybody, we're back from the video. About 3.5 minutes long. I hope you enjoyed it. It had a lot of information packed in that short period of time. Remember, what I really took from the video is that we know tobacco causes many kinds of diseases and cancers. Very, very bad things. We also know the chemicals were found at every stage of development of the tobacco plant itself, from its very inception when it's growing to the manufacture state and to the state of using it as well. We know that tobacco harms almost every organ in the body. We know that nicotine, which is in tobacco, actually serves as nature's own pesticide against insects and animals. And that's why those fields grow so abundant, because of the natural insecticide inside there that the insects and animals will not eat or pick on those plants. We know that there's chemicals in the fields when the plants are growing. We know there's chemicals that are added in the manufacturing phase. And we know that once you light and start burning tobacco and inhale tobacco, that new dangerous chemicals are created. And interestingly enough, at the very end, What it said was it all started here, and it showed you a little bitty plant. So let's move on. 3 other words that you use during your word search are listed up here on the board. And the very first one is nicotine. So we're going to define nicotine together. And nicotine is a known carcinogen. Hold on to that word for 1 second, carcinogen. And nicotine is a known carcinogen and the most addictive, poisonous substance found in tobacco. Nicotine is a stimulant. So now, going back on the word carcinogen for a second, it's our second definition. So we're going to knock that out of the way, and we're going to come back to one other word in our first definition. So what is a carcinogen? Our carcinogen is a substance that can cause cancer. And how many of you out there know someone in your families who've had cancer? I can raise my hand and say that I have. So very much, I lost my mother to cancer, and we can tell her story a little bit later. So going back to your first definition up here, one key word that I want to point out is the word addictive. What does addictive mean, or what is addiction? Well, let me tell you a little story about that so you understand what it means to me, and I've always used this since I met this young man. I met a young man named Derek. Derek was in 5th grade many years ago when I was teaching a drug abuse program. And Derek, when I asked the class what addiction meant to them, Derek was hearing impaired, and he threw his hand up right away, and he wanted to answer the question. I gave Derek the opportunity to answer that question. He stood up with his interpreter, and what he did, he didn't say anything because he's hearing impaired. He has a little trouble speaking as well. He took his little finger like this and put it into his mouth. What does that look like to you? Well, to me, it looked like he was fishing, and that's exactly what his interpreter told me. It meant to him, addiction is being hooked. So that's what we're talking about. Being addicted is hooked onto a substance. Kind of like you guys are with your video games. You can't put that down. I understand. It's a hard thing to do, okay? Last but not least, at the bottom of our list here, we have the word tar. And if you looked on your word search, tar was on there twice, see if you got it both times. Tar, as a matter of fact, is a sticky substance that is formed by burning tobacco. So where does that tar end up? Think about that for a second. If you're burning and inhaling that smoke, that tar is going to end up where? It's going to end up in the lungs. That's exactly what we're talking about, the damage that can be done. And it can start stopping the heart, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. Now let's touch on the 4 types, the common types of tobacco that you'll probably see in your lifetime. The first one on the top left is pipe tobacco. Now that's not something you'll see a lot in today's world, but I know when I was a little guy, my grandpa smoked a pipe. And not just my grandpa, but a lot of other men as well. And it was very common at the time, but it's not something you'll see every day. The one you see the most is cigarettes. Cigarettes are all over the place, 20 in the pack. Remember we talked about that brown, burnt looking kind of stuff? Crumbly stuff that's inside of cigarettes? Yeah, we talked about that. That's what tobacco looks like once it's processed and ready to go. Cigars, down on the bottom left. Cigars are like a giant cigarette. Some cigars are really big. We have small cigars, medium, and the big ones called stogies, and those stogies could have as much tobacco and nicotine in one cigar that would be in a full pack of cigarettes. And on the bottom right here is smokeless tobacco. Smokeless tobacco is a lot different than regular tobacco because it's not smoked, it's actually chewed or ingested through the mouth. So it could be a very fine ground tobacco like you see in the can up here, or it could be tobacco in a pouch, which is a lot thicker and can actually be chewed more. And what happens is once you place it in the mouth, it mixes with your saliva. And once it mixes with the saliva, the nicotine from the tobacco then affects your mouth, it affects your body the way a regular tobacco would in a cigarette or cigar or a pipe tobacco. Now notice something different about the container that this smokeless tobacco is in. Yes, you're right, there's a warning on there. That warning label is from the Surgeon General's office. The Surgeon General is our top doctor here in the United States, and they're appointed by the President. And their job is a very difficult job because they are to protect the health and welfare of all the citizens of the United States. And one of the ways they do that is by regulating what is in tobacco. And the companies have to disclose to the federal government what's in tobacco. And thereby, the Surgeon General then puts warning labels to protect people in the United States. And this one here reads, warning, this product can cause mouth cancer. Other warnings might say it can cause lung cancer. It can cause different types of cancers that we've already mentioned as well. Moving on then. We're going to talk about some facts now. And the facts are very interesting. There's many, many facts that we can cover about tobacco, but we only have a few selected that we think are very important for you to understand. First and foremost, in Missouri, you must be 21 to purchase tobacco products. Now, back in December of 2019, that age was actually 18. But the federal government has now created a law that the all the states have adopted, and we adopted ours, and from January on of 2020, the age is now 21. And the reason basically that the ages are so high is because young people have a lot of problems making decisions, and they make decisions sometimes that are wrong. So to help them make better decisions, we want them to be older before they start making decisions about using substances like tobacco. Now, another interesting fact that I find really kind of bizarre, are 9 out of 10 smokers actually tried smoking before the age of 18. So it means everybody you see smoking actually tried smoking before they were 18. And 98% of those people tried by the age of 26. Now, another interesting thing I want to talk about is how many middle school kids do you think have used tobacco in the last 30 days? Think about that for a second. Now, I see some hands up. No, not 25. Not 50 kids. No, that's way. Let's see what we got here, okay? In 2016, a survey says 7 out of every 100 middle school kids use tobacco products in the last 30 days. Why is this important to you? You asked that question. I know I asked that question too. What does that mean to me? Well, you're in 5th grade. Next year, though, you'll be headed towards middle school. And when you get to middle school, kids sometimes don't always make the best choices. And a lot of times they try to put pressure on you to do things. And they say, hey, we're all doing it. Everybody's doing it. It's fun. We're having a blast. They're not telling you quite the exact truth. Survey says, bing, only 7 out of 100 have used tobacco in the last 30 days. Now, you know smoking's bad, and we want to understand that if this trend continues at its current rate among youth in the United States, that 5.6 million of today's American younger than 18 will die from a smoking-related illness. That's a lot of people. So that's why we, Officer Chad Thorpe and I, team up together to help you understand the dangers of tobacco and other substances. Now, a little bit of math. Any math kids out there, raise your hand if you like to do math. I like to do math. I'm really great at math. It's a lot of fun. Now, we're going to average, instead of doing $4.56 a pack, I want to think about this. If I just took $5 for a quick average, and I smoked 1 pack a day, every day, how many days is that, kids? That's 365 days in a year. So if I take $5 and multiply it by 365 days, that'll give me the total of how much I spend as a one-person, 1 pack a day smoker for the entire year. That comes out to be $1,825. Now our figures up here shows $1,700, but that's at an average of $4.56. We're going to bump it up to $5 because I know it's higher than that right now. What can you do with that kind of money? My gosh, I think about a lot of tennis shoes for that money, a lot of milk, a lot of gas for the car, a lot of games for your video games. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about there, okay? But understand, let's double that. Let's just think that both parents or both guardians in your family smoked 1 pack a day. That's $3,600 a year. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Think about what could be happening with that money instead. Now we're going to focus a little bit on tobacco health effects. Tobacco health effects are a little bit different. The facts tell the numbers, and the health effects tell what happens to the body when tobacco is introduced. Smoking, number one, smoking leads to disease and disability and harms nearly every organ of the body. Every organ of the body, not just your lungs. We're talking every organ of the body. More than 16 million Americans are living with disease caused by smoking. So that could be direct smoke, it could be indirect smoke, and we'll get to that in a little bit too. We know what indirect smoke is? I bet you do. For every person who dies because of smoking, there are 30 other people who live with a serious smoking illness. That's a lot of people. Smoking can cause cancer. There's that word again, cancer. We've been talking about this. And prevent your body from fighting it. Poison in cigarette smoke can weaken the body's immune system, making it harder to kill cancer cells. And not just cancer cells. It can also make it harder to fight the flu, to fight the common cold. So you understand that poisons are really inside the cigarette smoke and do a lot of problems to your body. Now, we talked about cancers. What kind of cancers are we talking about that are caused by tobacco here? Smoking is a leading cause of lung cancer. It can also cause cancer of the blood, the bladder, the cervix, the colon, the liver, the larynx, the kidneys, the mouth, the throat, stomach, trachea, pancreas, esophagus. Did I miss anything? Are there other organs in the body that we don't know about? I think we've hit almost all of the organs of the body, but we also want to include maybe even the heart and the brain as well. Moving on. COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, another problem with smokers. COPD is a group of diseases that cause airflow blockage and breathing related problems. So imagine this for a second. If you were to walk around all day with your finger not in your nose, on your nose, kids, like this, block one of your nostrils, which sounds funny now, and try and breathe like that all day. And imagine even if you were winded and running, would it be easy to obtain air at that time? Not at all. So somebody who has COPD has that feeling inside your body like you're getting only half the oxygen you should be getting throughout the day. COPD also includes emphysema, chronic bronchitis, and asthma. And now smokers are 12 to 13 times more likely to die from COPD than non-smokers. So why take the risk and become a smoker and have that much of a greater risk of having problems with COPD? The heart, we can't forget the heart when it's affected by tobacco. Heart disease includes several types of heart conditions. Coronary heart disease is a narrowing of blood vessels that carry blood to the heart. When this happens, it can cause chest pain, heart attack, heart failure, and arrhythmia. Arrhythmia is just basically your heart not beating in the right fashion. But I want to go back to this thing about the blood vessels, the narrowing of the blood vessels for just a second. And I want you to think about a garden hose in the garden or outside, and you're washing the car and you drop it on the ground. And it gets a little bit of mud in it. And you're trying to get that hose to work and it's not working right because it's clogged up. So the same thing can happen to the heart. It builds plaque. And that tar we talked about earlier, it builds up inside the lungs, but the heart can build plaque inside the different arteries that are in there. And if you're slowing down the blood flow, what's happening to the rest of your body? What's happening to your brain? What's happening to the rest of your body? Not a good thing. Another problem with smokers is that they have strokes. A stroke occurs when the blood supply to the brain, there we go, blood to the brain, is blocked, or when a blood vessel in the brain bursts, causing the tissue to die. We all know you only have one brain. You don't get a chance at a brain. You only get one brain. A stroke can cause someone to have disability, such as paralysis, trouble speaking, muscle weakness, and memory loss, and a stroke ultimately, if it's serious enough, can also cause death. Now, we were talking about the indirect smoke a little bit earlier, so we're going to come back to the fact about secondhand smoke. Secondhand smoke is a combination of smoke from the burning in the cigarette and smoke breathed out by smokers. Years ago, when we go to restaurants, they allowed smoking in the restaurants. And I imagine being a waiter or waitress coming up to the table of smokers and trying to take your order. So not only are you getting the smoke that's already burning, you're getting the smoke that they're exhaling as well, secondhand smoke. And there have been a lot of people who have died from secondhand smoke. Secondhand smoke also contains many chemicals, as much as 7,000 chemicals. Many of those, hundreds of those are toxic, and approximately 70 of those can cause cancer, and many more are poisonous as well. Just give you an example of some of the things that you could find in tobacco smoke. It's not the extensive list, it's a short list. But I do want to point out some of these that are really kind of gross to think about this for a second. So acetone, which is nail polish remover, has been found in trace elements of tobacco smoke, as well as arsenic, which is rat poison. It kills a rat, what will it do to a human in enough high doses? Butane, lighter fluid. Carbon monoxide, which is the car exhaust fumes coming out of your cars. And you know that that's bad for you as well. Formaldehyde, which is used in embalming fluid. And if you had someone pass away, like I had, I understand it's a sad thing. But when you go to a funeral and you can see your loved one in the display there, they have to embalm them. And they put this fluid in there, which helps preserve tissues. It keeps the tissue from being bad and smelling. So the long and short of it is, think of that. If that does that to a body, what would it do to you inside your lungs and the rest of your body? Lead from batteries, methanol from rocket fuel, and of course nicotine, the insecticide as well. We already know how that works. Continuing on with the health effects for non-smokers, 41,000 people, non-smoking adults and 400 infants die each year from secondhand smoke. So a baby who doesn't even have a chance is getting secondhand smoke and has had no way to survive that at all. 34,000 non-smokers die from heart disease. 7,300 non-smokers die from lung disease. So there's those diseases again, the heart and the lungs. We're not even talking about cancers. 8,000 non-smokers die from a stroke. So we can see the numbers are very high in the United States. Oh, and we can't forget about electronic cigarettes. Not a good topic of discussion. They are battery-powered smoking devices designed to look and feel like a regular cigarette. They use cartridges filled with liquid containing nicotine. And nicotine, didn't we talk about that earlier, how bad that was? So there's nicotine in an e-cigarette? There sure is. Not only nicotine, but flavorings and other chemicals. Electronic cigarettes are a heating device that converts the liquid into vapor, which a person inhales. So it's still going inside their lungs. It's still probably causing damage. We know it's causing damage. And you'll see that big puff of what looks like white smoke, but it's not actually smoke. It's a vapor coming out of their body. E-cigarettes, e-cigs, e-hookahs, mods, vape pens, vapes, vaping, Juuls, all different terms that you'll understand when you hear people talking about vaping. E-cigarette aerosol that users inhale and exhale can contain harmful substances. Nicotine, ultrafine particulars, flavoring, volatile organic compounds, cancer-causing chemicals like heavy metals, nickel, tin, and lead are all found in the ingredients for e-cigarettes. Defective e-cigarette batteries have also caused fires and explosions resulting in serious physical injuries. You can go out on the internet and search and look at e-cigarette explosions, and you'll see people who've had them in their pockets or up in their pockets up here or in a bag, and the batteries that were defective get heated up and either explode or they'll burn inside somebody's backpack and cause a lot of serious injuries. Children and adults have been poisoned by swallowing, breathing, or absorbing e-cigarette liquid into the skin and eyes. And part of the problem with that is that the liquids that you see are purchased in little bottles and they're colorful for different flavors, and a little kid sees that and think it's something pretty and think it's something they can drink. So a lot of times that's what happens is little kids will open those up and will actually drink those things and get very sick from those things and have to be taken to the hospital. And one other point that really is interesting information is the fact that because I talked earlier about the fact that the tobacco industry is regulated by the federal government, but the e-cigarette industry is not. And they do not have to disclose the ingredients inside of the different types of liquids used in e-cigarettes. So thereby, the question you have to ask yourself is, what is really inside these containers? They say that e-cigarettes are supposed to be better for you. I don't know, because the problem being is you don't know what's inside them. All right, everybody, now we're going to do a little bit of an exercise. If you focus your attention to page 9 in your workbooks, you'll see it states just the facts on there. And we already covered the facts, and actually the facts are pretty much repeated in the green section in your workbook. Now it's time for you to review that yourself, to go through the questions that are listed on the right-hand side. There are 8 questions that are fill in the blanks. So your job at this time is to go through those questions, trying to find the appropriate answer. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to go ahead and do that. And once you get that completed, I'll come back and then we'll go through the answer slides together. So go ahead and hit pause on your video player, whether you got your iPad or your computer, and we'll come back in just a minute when you complete the exercise. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm glad to see you made it. And we're going to review now your Just the Facts exercise that you completed on page 9 in your workbooks. So let's go through the answers together and see how you did. And if you don't have the correct answer, you go ahead and change it this time, because we're going to make sure you have the appropriate information. So number 1, ladies and gentlemen, smoking is a leading cause of, yes, it's lung cancer. Very good answer. But if you don't have that, go ahead and put it in your workbooks now. How many non-smokers die of secondhand smoke each year? Well, that number is 46,000. Or if you have 41,000 on there from your workbook, that's fine. But any of those 2 numbers is fine. We just use 2 different figures. More than 480,000 Americans die each year from smoking cigarettes. That's in the United States. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. There are more than 7,000 harmful chemicals found in cigarette smoke. And what is the most addictive substance found in tobacco? Everybody knows that answer by now, and that's nicotine. Continuing on to the next page. Besides lung cancer, list 3 types of cancer a person can acquire from using tobacco-related products. Now, there's a full list here. I'll read them all, but you only need to choose 3 of those. And the items are cancer of the blood, the bladder, cervix, colon, liver, larynx, kidneys, mouth, nose, throat, stomach, trachea, pancreas, and esophagus. I think we've hit them all. So in Missouri, it is illegal to purchase, borrow, or possess tobacco under the age of, everybody, that's right, 21. And last but not least, smoking can cause What and what of the blood vessels? Thickening and narrowing. Very good, everybody. I'm glad you took the time to complete the assignment. All right, kids, believe it or not, we're getting close to the end of our lessons, but we have a few more things to cover. And the first thing I want to cover is our situations. So our start situations, if you turn to page 10, the choice is yours, and we're going to discuss that. But on page 10, you'll see a short story. And you'll see on the opposite side of the story is actually a stoplight. And I want to help you understand what this is all about. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually turn to the inside cover of your workbook to the full start stoplight. And I'm going to explain that to you so you understand. Okay? S-T-A-R-T. Does that sound familiar? Yes, it is. It's all about start. First thing is S for stop in the red. Identify the problem. Our stories will all have problems. We'll do these throughout several lessons. T, think. Think about the consequences. What is the consequence? Well, consequence is a result of your action, whatever you do. It could be good or bad. Yellow, A, ask. Ask yourself how the situation impacts you. How does it make you feel about what you're reading, the incident that's going on? R, review and reflect. What have you learned about this problem in your START class or from your parents or your guardians? And last but not least, the last T, green, take action. Start by saying no. You're going to hear us say that a lot. Choose an action that keeps you safe and healthy. So now, you can go back and forth, but we're going to start and go back to page 10. Situation is as follows. Examine the following situation using the start stoplight. Determine the best solution with your group, but you don't have a group today, which is really sad, but you can do it by yourselves. I'm sure you can accomplish this just fine. The story is as follows. Ricky invited several friends to stay over at his house for a camp out. While they were sitting around the campfire, Ricky noticed that Mark walked off into the wooded area at the end of his yard. Another friend, Jeff, approached Mark as he was lighting a cigarette. Oh my gosh, this is a camp out of friends about your age. We're not talking high school or anybody else, we're talking your age. So now what we need to do is we need to go back and start the process of the start stoplight. So the very first S that's going to be on your line on page 10, you'll have two red lines there, two sets of red lines. First one is for the stop portion. Identify the problem. So I'll help you through this one. Of course, we all know what the problem is that your friend has brought cigarettes to the party. That can cause a lot of issues. So in a complete sentence, try to write out what you believe the problem is. T, think. Think about the consequences. What could happen to your friend? Well, he can get caught by parents. They can smell the smoke, be very upset, be disappointing his friends because he brought tobacco to the party, to the camp out. So a lot of different things, and none of your answers are going to be wrong. A, ask. Ask yourself how the situation impacts you. Well, to me, if it were my camp out, it would disappoint me that a friend brought that, and if my parents realized what was going on, I probably might not ever have another camp out. R, review and reflect. What have you learned about this problem in your START class or from your parents? We just went through a lot of information about health effects, about facts about tobacco that you could include in a complete sentence to describe and review and reflect. And last but not least, T, take action. Start by saying no. You'll hear us say that a lot. Choose an action that keeps you safe and healthy. So that's up to you to decide how you want to stay safe and healthy. Would you tell your parents? Would you talk to your friend about it who brought the tobacco? Would you all talk together and try and figure out the problem, trying to help your friend stay away from something that's not healthy? So then back on page 10, it's time for you now to go ahead and reflect on the story again. Go ahead and reread it, understand what's taken place, and use your start stoplight at the beginning of your book to help you answer the questions from the top to the bottom. So at this time, go ahead and pause, do your work. When you finish with your work, you come back and see me, and we'll finish up our lesson for the day. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had the time to complete your assignment on the start stoplight. Now understand that these situations that we are covering today are going to repeat in a couple of the other lessons later on. So if you're confused on how to use that start stoplight, be sure and just flip back to the inside cover for a quick review so you are very, very sure of how to answer your questions from this point on. All right, as we finish our day today, we're going to do a quick summary over some of the things that we learned. First and foremost, we're going to cover a few facts. The legal age to purchase, possess, or use tobacco is 21 years of age. Next is nicotine is addictive, and addiction is hard to overcome. Remember, we talked about being hooked, just like my friend Derek mentioned many years ago. And tobacco products contain chemicals that cause cancer. We know that the chemicals start from the second the plant grows, all the way through production, and into the burning and inhaling and exhaling of tobacco. We also cover a lot of effects today. We covered the main effect about cancer. There are many cancers caused by tobacco. So we want to make sure that you understand it's not good for your body. It affects the entire body. We also talked about blood clots and COPD. All right, kids. And last but not least, I want you to think about consequences. Think about your parents. How are they going to handle the situation once they find out that you're using tobacco in some fashion? What happens if it's at school? Will you be suspended? Will you be in trouble? And not only that, you'll be in more trouble with your parents as well. And the legal aspects. It is 21 years of age to be able to purchase or possess tobacco, so you need to think about that as well. Last but not least, the health. We've covered so many health effects today of what tobacco does to your bodies and what it can do to your entire body and all the organs in your body. We know it's very devastating. So we're going to close today with one more thing. And this is going to be some of your work that you'll be doing by yourselves. It's going to be on page 11 of your workbooks. This is our last section of the day. This is called What Did I Learn? It's kind of a brief review of what we've already been through. And this is a circle true and false answers, only 3 questions. I think that you can handle that between now and our next lesson. So make sure you get that work done. You don't have to do it right this moment, but we got a whole week to accomplish that task. Remember, as we finish up for the day, thank you first of all for your attention and your respect. And when you leave school or when you leave your house, just remember what you learned and start by saying no. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.